A cold November night drapes itself over the turning earth. Above, the heavens burn with their ancient light suns that have watched over this planet since long before human memory, each one a distant sentinel in a sky so vast it swallows thought. The great continents drift through shadow, stitched together by the quiet hum of cities. Roads glow like rivers of fire, bridges gleam like threads of silver, and windows flicker with the restless pulse of human life. Yet beyond the soft halo of our atmosphere lies a silence deeper than oceans, a darkness untouched by the warmth of our lamps. It is there, far past the reach of the naked eye, that something stirs. For centuries, prophets have spoken of signs, veiled warnings, whispered in the language of dreams. Among them, the name of Baba Vanga endures like an echo that refuses to fade. The blind mystic, whose visions were said to chart the path of history before it unfolded, spoke in fragments and shadows. Some came to pass, others remained sealed in mystery. Among her most unsettling whispers was one fixed in time. A month, November, and an attack from beyond the stars. No details, no explanation, only a date and a warning. Most dismiss such words as folklore, the dust of superstition carried into the modern age. But in quiet corners of science, there is unease. An unspoken acknowledgement that patterns in the sky do not always conform to expectation. Signals without origin, objects without precedent. And so the lines blur between prophecy and data, between the visions of a blind seer and the instruments of modern astronomy. If the warning is only a myth, the night will pass as all others have. But if it is not, then perhaps, in the darkness above us, the first steps of something unknown have already begun. The story of a prophecy is never just the story of one moment. It begins in a small village in the mountains of Bulgaria in the year 1911. A child named Evangelia Pandeva Dimitrova is born into poverty, destined for obscurity. But fate intervenes. At 12 years old, she is caught in a violent storm, a whirlwind of dust and force that blinds her eyes forever. In the silence that follows, the girl who will be known to the world as Baba Vanga opens them again. But not to light, to visions, to whispers of futures not yet lived. Her words would echo through the Balkans like the wind itself. Villagers gathered to hear her prophecies, warnings of wars, floods, and leaders who would rise and fall. With each fulfilled vision, the legend of Baba Vanga grew. In time, she became known as the Nostradamus of the Balkans, a blind mystic whose predictions would ripple far beyond the borders of her homeland. Among these predictions was one that has haunted imaginations ever since, that in a November of some future year, humanity would face an attack from beyond. Her phrasing was elusive, shrouded in the kind of ambiguity that births centuries of interpretation. Did she speak of a metaphorical invasion ideas, diseases, disasters, or did she truly mean beings from the stars? As the decades unfolded, her words lingered, a ghostly echo tethered to an uncertain future. Scientists ignored them, historians dismissed them, but the prophecy refused to die. It became part of the cultural mythos, whispered on late-night radio shows, tucked into tabloids, debated in internet forums. Yet always, at its heart, lay a single unanswered question. Why November? While prophecy seemed a matter for mystics, a parallel story was quietly taking root within science itself. For centuries, humanity had looked at the stars and wondered if someone might be looking back. But it was not until the 20th century that the question became an experiment. In 1960, astronomer Frank Drake pointed a radio telescope at two nearby sun-like stars and listened. His search marked the birth of SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. For decades, the silence of the cosmos pressed back, vast and indifferent. Until, in 1977, something extraordinary happened. At Ohio State University's Big Ear Radio Telescope, astronomer Jerry Eman stumbled upon a signal, A narrowband, 72-second burst from deep space, too precise, too structured to be noise. He circled it in red ink and wrote 2 letters in the margin. Wow. The wow. Signal, as it came to be known, was never repeated. But it raised a haunting possibility. What if the silence was only apparent? What if someone had whispered once and then withdrawn? More recently, other anomalies emerged. In 2007, the first fast radio burst FRB 010724 was detected, a millisecond flash of radio energy from billions of light years away. At first, these bursts seemed random, but soon, more appeared. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Some were singular, others repeated. And among the repeating ones, patterns began to emerge. Sequences that hinted at order, at structure, even at intention. Most scientists explain them as natural. Collisions of neutron stars, magnetar flares, the universe itself cracking with energy. But a smaller group whispered another possibility, that such bursts could be beacons, deliberate signals broadcast across unimaginable distances. And here, strangely, myth and observation began to converge, because several of these bursts and other unexplained signals were logged in late autumn months, some clustered around November. Coincidence, said most astronomers. But others, fringe thinkers, ufologists, and a handful of data scientists began to notice the alignment. The calendar of prophecy overlapped, however faintly, with the clock of the cosmos. Meanwhile, November itself proved an unusual month in space-watching history. In October 2017, astronomers detected an object entering the solar system from interstellar space, the first of its kind ever seen. It was named ʻOumuamua, a messenger from afar arriving first. Its trajectory, its acceleration, its cigar-like shape all defied easy classification. While many insisted it was simply an odd rock, others, including Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb, proposed something radical, that it might be artificial, perhaps a probe, perhaps a fragment of alien technology drifting silently past Earth. And the date of its discovery? Just weeks before November. In the same season, solar flares reached peaks that disrupted satellites and radio transmissions on Earth. Auroras shimmered unexpectedly across lower latitudes, as if the sun itself were speaking in tongues. Scientists tracked these storms with curiosity, but mythmakers saw something deeper, a cosmic alignment. Across the years, November kept returning, like a refrain. Meteor showers, solar storms, interstellar anomalies, a calendar month turning into a stage. And somewhere in the background, the blind seer's prophecy whispered on. Thus the discovery phase takes form. 2 threads, prophecy and science, weaving toward one another. One born from vision, myth, and mystery. The other from data, telescopes, and equations. Each pointing to the same question. Could there come a November when the sky would no longer be silent? For scientists, such questions demand evidence. For mystics, they demand belief. Yet between them lies a twilight where both collide. The human instinct to prepare, to imagine, to warn. And it is in that twilight that Baba Vanga's vision lingers. Not as proof, but as an unsettling echo of the patterns now emerging in the data itself. Because if the signals are real, if ʻOumuamua was more than stone, if November's alignments are more than coincidence, then perhaps the prophecy was not simply myth. Perhaps it was memory, or anticipation, or something humanity has yet to understand. And in that convergence, the first seeds of unease begin to grow. There are moments in science when the universe seems to betray us. We expect order, rules, equations that bind reality into something predictable. And then something appears that should not be. A signal, a trajectory, a whisper that makes no sense within the logic we know. This is the essence of shock in science. Not simply discovery, but violation. For those who first cataloged Baba Vanga's prediction, the idea of alien contact, much less an alien attack, was relegated to folklore. science had no place for prophecy. But science did have a place for anomalies. And in the last half-century, anomalies have piled up like whispers in the dark. The WOW signal of 1977 was the first to strike like lightning. A narrowband, 1,420 megahertz frequency. The hydrogen line, the most logical channel for interstellar communication. Its intensity was so sharp, so unlikely to be noise, that astronomers froze. In that moment, every assumption of cosmic silence was shattered. It wasn't proof, but it was possibility. And in science, possibility can be more destabilizing than certainty. The shock deepened decades later with the flood of fast radio bursts, each one a millisecond scream across the abyss, carrying more energy than the sun emits in days. They came without warning, from random points in the sky, from billions of light years away. Some repeated, some didn't. Some seemed to echo with rhythms, as though coded. For the scientific community, this was an intrusion, a reminder that the universe is not as quiet as textbooks had promised. Then came ʻOumuamua, a shard of interstellar matter slicing through our solar system. At first, astronomers celebrated, finally, a visitor from another star. But then the object refused to behave. Its brightness flickered strangely, its path curved in ways no comet or asteroid should. It accelerated without outgassing, as though pushed by invisible hands. The shock was immediate. Harvard's Avi Loeb proposed that it might be alien technology, a light sail perhaps, drifting silently on cosmic winds. The scientific establishment recoiled. To admit such a possibility was to cross into the forbidden, yet the data would not yield. Oumuamua was not behaving like rock. It was behaving like something else. Here, the parallels with prophecy become uncanny. Baba Vanga spoke not of gradual encounters, not of peaceful revelation, but of disruption, an attack, something sudden, violating, incomprehensible. And suddenly, science itself was documenting intrusions that mirrored that description. Unexplainable signals, impossible trajectories, cosmic events that did not follow the script. The shock, then, was twofold. First, that the universe might not be indifferent. Second, that humanity might not be ready. Every anomaly struck not just at equations, but at psychology. Because to admit that signals could be intentional, that objects could be artificial, is to admit that we are not alone. And if we are not alone, then the hierarchy of the cosmos collapses. Humanity is no longer at the center. We are no longer even exceptional. We are simply one intelligence among many, and perhaps not the most powerful. The terror of this possibility cannot be overstated. Stephen Hawking himself warned that seeking alien contact could be reckless. He compared it to the arrival of Columbus in the New World, not a meeting of equals, but a catastrophe for the less advanced. To many scientists, the real shock of the anomalies was not their strangeness, but what they implied. That if we are being watched, we are vulnerable. That if we are being studied, we are exposed. November, too, grew into a symbol of shock. Each time the month returned, astronomers logged disruptions, solar flares, radio blackouts, bursts from beyond. The coincidence was maddening. Statistically meaningless, perhaps, but psychologically potent. When myth and data overlap, even faintly, the human mind cannot resist linking them. And so the prophecy returned to the scientific table, not as belief, but as a metaphor for unease. If Baba Vanga had said July, perhaps nothing would resonate. But November became a drumbeat, echoing against data, anomalies, and cosmic noise. Thus, the scientific shock was not one event, but a convergence. Signals, objects, patterns, warnings. a chorus of disturbances that seemed to whisper, "Something is wrong, something is out there, and it does not obey the rules we thought we knew." The universe, once silent, had begun to speak. The question now was whether humanity was listening. Shock is the spark. Investigation is the fire that follows. When the anomalies refused to vanish, science did what it always does. It turned its gaze, sharpened its tools, and asked the universe to explain itself. The first wave of scrutiny came through the great radio observatories. Arecibo, with its vast dish embedded in the hills of Puerto Rico, strained to catch whispers from the stars. Then came Green Bank, Parkes, Chime in Canada, each recording floods of data, parsing the heavens for patterns. The signals, brief and violent, returned again. The FRBs repeated. One source, cataloged as FRB 121102, pulsed from the same corner of the sky, a billion light years away. The precision was maddening. Not random, not steady, but rhythmic. Science had stumbled into a puzzle it could not yet solve. To investigate deeper, astronomers invoked triangulation. Multiple telescopes pointed together, measuring time delays, pinning origins. Patterns emerged. Galaxies young and violent, star nurseries, magnetars. But even these did not explain the sheer power. Some bursts carried energy equivalent to all the stars of an entire galaxy shining for a fraction of a second. What natural process could scream so loudly? The deeper the investigation went, the more the line blurred between astrophysics and intent. Then came spaceborne eyes. Hubble, Spitzer, Chandra. Each probed not just light, but the invisible spectra, X-rays, infrared, gamma rays. Their results only sharpened the enigma. Oumuamua, under Hubble's watch, revealed its acceleration in defiance of Newton's laws. Chandra noted X-ray echoes that hinted at hidden interactions. Infrared telescopes sought comet tails and found none. Every answer only bred new questions. Scientists turned to modeling. Supercomputers, fed by petabytes of data, simulated possibilities. Collapsing stars, cosmic strings, plasma lensing. But the simulations often ended in silence, or worse, in chaos. The inputs did not match the outputs. Nature was not cooperating. And then the deeper layer, time. Datasets, when overlaid across decades, revealed strange clustering. The bursts, the signals, the anomalies, some leaned toward late-year months. The clustering was not statistically significant enough to claim correlation, but enough to gnaw at the mind. Each November, whispers grew louder. Was it merely observational bias, or was there a rhythm hidden in the cosmos? To pierce further, physicists pushed beyond telescopes into particle accelerators. The Large Hadron Collider probed quantum fields, searching for hidden interactions that might explain strange accelerations or unseen forces. Experiments hinted at dark matter, dark energy, unknown particles flickering at the edge of detection. If aliens existed, would their presence echo in physics itself, in distortions of the very fields that weave the cosmos? The investigation spread into defense agencies. Military satellites, designed to track missiles, also recorded cosmic flashes. Some were declassified, gamma ray bursts mistaken for nuclear tests, radio pulses logged and forgotten. Beneath the veil of secrecy, another truth simmered, that humanity was watching the skies, not just for science, but for survival. And yet, perhaps the most telling investigation came not from machines, but from humanity's own unease. Teams of psychologists were consulted. How would civilizations react to undeniable proof? History offered grim answers: panic, collapse, denial. To prepare was not merely scientific, but civilizational. What the instruments revealed then was not clarity, but layers of mystery. Each device, dish, telescope, collider pulled back one veil, only to reveal another. And in every shadow, the echo of prophecy returned, an attack, sudden and inexplicable. The data did not confirm it, but neither did it erase the possibility. By the close of this phase, science was no longer asking if anomalies existed. It was asking, what do they mean? And more hauntingly, are we the observers or the observed? The more humanity looked, the darker the mystery became. What began as whispers of anomalies was now a chorus, rising, intensifying, unignorable. Each discovery seemed to stretch science to its breaking point. The repeating fast radio bursts once thought to be rare multiplied. By the mid-2022, astronomers had cataloged hundreds. Patterns emerged, but not natural ones. Some bursts clustered in ways too precise, too rhythmic to dismiss. Entire constellations lit up with signals that seemed to coordinate. Could blind physics weave such choreography? Or was there a hand unseen, unknown, guiding it? Then came the acceleration paradox of ʻOumuamua. Its strange flight path was not an isolated case. Other interstellar visitors, though subtler, displayed peculiar drifts. When their trajectories were plotted, faint alignments appeared, as if these objects shared a common origin. A fleet? A reconnaissance? The possibility gnawed at astrophysicists, unspoken in papers, whispered in corridors. The escalations were not confined to space. Instruments on Earth began to falter under unexplained interference. Military satellites reported blind spots. Seconds of silence, where none should exist. Pilots, both civilian and defense, spoke of radar ghosts, impossible speeds, vanishing blips. Each incident was cataloged, buried in bureaucracy, but together they painted a picture of growing intrusion. And then the timing. November. Each year, a strange clustering of phenomena. Signals spiking, anomalies intensifying, sightings multiplying. At first, coincidence. Then, statistical hint. Finally, a pattern impossible to ignore. If the cosmos was a stage, then November was when the curtain rippled. The dread deepened when the anomalies bled into human psychology. Reports of sky sounds low, unearthly hums rolling across cities surged in frequency. Ordinary citizens described dreams of lights, of arrivals, of skies split open. Neuroscientists dismissed it as mass hysteria. Yet the clustering around celestial events, eclipses, meteor showers, echoed with unease. For some, this escalation was thrilling. Proof that we were not alone seemed closer than ever. But for others, it was suffocating. The anomalies no longer whispered of curiosity. They spoke of intention. If something was out there, it was not passive. It was approaching. Philosophers raised the most chilling point. What if we were not witnessing the birth of a mystery, but its countdown? Prophecy merged with physics, folklore with data. Baba Vanga's visions, once dismissed as superstition, gained unsettling weight. November was no longer just a date. In her words, it was an echo in science itself. The escalation turned the unknown into a threat. Not because proof had been found, but because denial was no longer possible. The universe was changing its tone from silence to whisper, from whisper to roar. And humanity stood beneath the growing storm, uncertain whether it was a storm of nature or a storm of will. By the close of this chapter, the question was no longer, what are we observing? But what is observing us? In the long corridors of observatories and the shadowed rooms of classified agencies, speculation took root. The data had grown too sharp, too patterned, to remain hidden in silence. Each November's surge of signals, each unexplained acceleration, each whisper in the ionosphere demanded explanation. And when certainty refused to appear, only theories remained. The first instinct was comfort, the reassurance that nature, in its endless chaos, was enough. Perhaps it was magnetars, neutron stars twisted by magnetic storms, releasing bursts of energy that rivaled entire galaxies. Perhaps it was the ionosphere, echoing and bending solar winds into strange harmonics. Perhaps comets and interstellar visitors shifted their paths not by intent, but by the subtle push of gas venting from their frozen cores. But the comfort did not last. Magnetar tantrums were wild and irregular, not ordered like a repeating sequence. Plasma distortions echoed noise, not structure. And cometary outgassing could not explain accelerations aligned as though against gravity itself, movements too precise, too deliberate. The explanations felt stretched thin, as if nature had been forced to play a part it had not written. So the whisper of technology began. Within SETI and beyond, some dared to speak of techno-signatures, fingerprints of design, of engineering. Narrowband signals, repeating with mathematical elegance, bore the shape of intention, not accident. Some turned to the old Bracewell hypothesis, imagining probes sent long before humanity had even walked upright machines buried in silence, waiting for a species to rise and broadcast. If so, perhaps they were not approaching. Perhaps they were already here, watching. That thought cast a deeper shadow. For reconnaissance is never neutral. Scouts do not linger without purpose. In the silence of military strategy rooms, some noted the uneasy parallel. That mapping always comes before movement. That surveillance precedes contact. A fleet does not always arrive to greet. Sometimes it arrives to measure. Others looked further back, not outward. Prophecy, they argued, was less prediction than memory. The Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki. The Dogon told stories of Sirius, knowledge impossible without telescopes. The Mayans carved codices of celestial return. Perhaps Baba Vanga's vision was not invention, but echo a memory of contact long ago, resurfacing through myth, preserved in the deep unconscious of humanity. If civilizations had touched before, then perhaps prophecy was the scar. Still others turned physics inside out. What if the signals were not transmissions, but entanglements? Ripples stitched into the quantum fabric, skipping across light years faster than light itself. What if civilizations far older had bent dark energy, turning the very acceleration of the universe into a medium of communication? Or worse, what if intelligence itself did not always emerge in flesh or machine, but in plasma, in stars,
32 seconds
in
into
dimensions
the flight.
unseen?
The 3 liquid fuel main engines soon will throttle back to
Not
72% of rated performance
but
down in the
awakening.
bucket, reducing the stress
Yet
on
for
the
every
shuttle as it
voice
goes
that warned of
transonic.
conquest, another whispered of wonder. Perhaps a probe was not a weapon, but a question. Perhaps mapping was not strategy, but curiosity. If intelligence was a universal law, then maybe curiosity was too. But all theories, whether rooted in science or stretched beyond it, turned toward the same point: November. A window of alignment, a shadow on the horizon of time. Magnetars, probes, ancestral memory, quantum minds all converged upon the prophecy's date, sharpening it into a blade pressed against the imagination of the world. And so the mystery grew, not smaller, but sharper, more defined, more dangerous. Each speculation, no matter how comforting or terrifying, carried the same unspoken refrain. Something waits in the sky, and the month is approaching. To measure the unknown is to hold a candle against the wind, yet humanity has always lit the flame. From the great dishes of Arecibo to the whispering arrays of the Very Large Array in New Mexico, we have stretched our ears toward the sky, hoping to catch the faintest murmur of intelligence. Now, with Baba Vanga's prophecy looming like a date etched into the heavens, those ears are sharper, wider, more relentless than ever before. In the deserts of South Africa, the square-kilometer array rises like a cathedral of listening, its countless dishes poised to drink the silence of the stars. In Chile, the Atacama's thin air carries the clarity of millennia-old starlight into instruments tuned to the subtlest distortions. Above Earth, the James Webb Space Telescope unspools its golden mirrors, tracing galaxies with such precision that even the faint breath of alien engineering might shimmer in its reflection. And further still, satellites like TESS and Gaia catalog the dance of stars and planets, building a map of the cosmic stage upon which any approaching presence would surely leave its trace. But the search does not stop at light. In the caverns of Switzerland, the Large Hadron Collider tears open reality itself, smashing particles at speeds that mimic the first seconds after creation. For some, these collisions are more than curiosity. They are a key, a chance to glimpse the physics a civilization older than stars might already command. In the cold silence of Antarctica, neutrino detectors buried deep within the ice watch for particles ghostly enough to slip through entire planets without pause. Messengers, perhaps carrying stories from the heart of alien engines. Governments, too, are listening. Instruments once built for war, radar webs that can map the faintest missile rise are quietly turned upward. Satellites drift in secret orbits, scanning not for human armies, but for anomalies that defy human design. And while scientists publish in journals, governments hold their findings close, wrapped in silence, as though too much knowledge, spoken too loudly, might crack the fragile balance of fear and hope. Even the skies above ordinary people have become instruments. Amateur astronomers, scattered across rooftops and mountains, watch with lenses bought for love rather than funding. And sometimes, it is they who see first strange accelerations, unexplainable patterns, bursts of light where no catalog had placed a star. The collective gaze of humanity, professional and ordinary, has never been more attuned. Yet still, no answer comes. Only patterns, only whispers. The deeper we measure, the more precise our instruments become, the more the mystery recoils, like a shadow at the edge of a torch. The tools sharpen, but the silence remains intact, which leaves us with a haunting question. Is the silence itself an answer, or is it merely the pause before something speaks? And so, November hangs over the telescopes and colliders, over the radio dishes and frozen neutrino mines as a quiet test, a date that is not only prophecy, but an experiment. Humanity watches. Humanity waits. The instruments hum, and the silence deepens. The night deepens, and November drapes itself over the world like a veil. Above the silent cities, stars burn as they have for billions of years, indifferent to the fears and prophecies of humankind. Yet it is in this very indifference that the question becomes unbearable. What if the silence is not emptiness, but distance? What if it is not distance, but waiting? Civilizations rise and fall upon the surface of a fragile blue sphere, and still the cosmos expands, ancient and unyielding. Humanity has mapped oceans, tamed fire, and touched the moon. Yet beyond the thin film of atmosphere, there lies a truth still unanswered. Are we alone? Or is the silence merely the pause before a voice that will change everything? Baba Vanga's whispered vision lingers not as evidence, but as metaphor, a reminder of how fragile the veil of certainty truly is. Science measures signals, probes the dark, builds instruments vast as mountains, but even the greatest machines falter before the immensity of the unknown. The prophecy of November, whether born of mysticism or memory, collides with this immensity, pressing us to ask questions that do not fade with the calendar. If something were to come, would we recognize it? Would it appear as fire across the skies, or as equations etched in radio waves? Would it be sudden like a strike, or patient, like a presence that has always been here, unnoticed? And if nothing comes, if November passes into December unbroken, what then? Does the absence of an answer absolve us, or does it deepen the mystery? The truth may never arrive with trumpet or thunder. It may lie in a whisper between the stars, in the silence that hums between galaxies, in the faint glow of an object slipping quietly into our system. Whether prophet or scientist, believer or skeptic, all stand together beneath the same endless sky, fragile against eternity. And so the question lingers, unresolved, echoing into the silence. If they came, would we even see them? Or would they already be here, watching, waiting, hidden in the darkness as the world turns beneath a November sky?